Identity thins when territorial flesh buckles under devotion. Every record surrounding the anti-pope's expansion describes terrain losing definition as missionary bands advance through farmland, forest, and forgotten byways. Their instruments, tuned to subtle influence, yield a continuous pulse that bends cognition toward the Grail's internal hunger. Incense carries narcotic spores that soften the threshold of will, and archival residue implies that such spores seed obedience before the first hymn reaches the ear. The hinterland surrounding Avignon receive these pilgrim processions without resistance once agricultural scarcity deepens. Famine prepares every threshold. Grain fails across the French front, yet the soil adjoining Avignon breathes unusually fertile cycles, drawing displaced farmers in steady increments toward shrines rising among ravines and silent meadows. These congregations march in woven lines towards sanctuaries formed from scavenged liturgical material, each fragment altered through ritual grime until the object participates in Beelzebub's doctrine. Archives yield a suggestion that expansion occurs through imperceptible increments. Cartographic records show borders shifting by small distances each year, as if territory exhales and accumulates new acreage. Such expansions appear in districts far removed from Avignon, carried by disguised missionaries who apply bribes and fumes until outlying settlements begin echoing the same hymns as the Grail thralls emerging from the Rhone basin. These movements form a continental weave of infiltration. Fields once untouched by sacrificial rites awaken with unnatural abundance, and this abundance fosters migration toward the fly's orbit. Hunger dissolves resistance. Fertility creates magnetism. Each movement strengthens the next. Temple origins align with the first surge of missionary offspring issued from the anti-pope's cell. These figures inherit a strain that permeates both flesh and cognition, granting their presence a weight that binds entire families into service. Their advance forms a sequence: approach, enthrallment, relocation, installation. Settlement by settlement, villages become tributaries feeding the Grail's interior geography. The doctrinal strata permit a conjecture that every converted region offers itself willingly, pulled by visions of overflowing granaries and pastures shimmering with impossible growth. Sacrificial pledges begin with small tokens: grain, cattle, children's heirlooms, before escalating toward offerings of bone, relic, and lineage. Each pledge fuses the land to the cult's widening territory, forming an early lattice for the temples that follow. Sanctuaries attributed to the fly emerge in clearings shaped by vanished structures or collapsed shrines, their foundations retaining faint impressions of prior worship. The missionary in charge defines the sanctuary's internal temperament. Source absorption reveals that stolen saints, altar icons, and menorahs claimed as trophies undergo controlled desecration, reshaped through discoloration and mold smear until no trace of their earlier meaning remains. A visitor entering through the facade experiences familiarity that dissolves once the eyes adjust to the warped interior geometry. The doctrinal residue indicates that every surface receives contamination. Corners swell. Grottos breathe through pores in the stone. Sounds echo inside hollows carved by insects bred to consume devotional paint. Liturgical pathways within each sanctuary alter direction without warning. Walls lean inward in slow increments, as if influenced by a settling organism beneath the floor. Incense circulates in controlled vortices, distributing hallucinogenic compounds that further weaken resistance to missionary instruction. Manuscripts catalogue multiple arrangements: circular chambers around central pits filled with sacrificial runoff, tiered galleries where chained recipients kneel beneath dripping icons, narrow corridors where relics hum with parasitic frequency. No layout emerges more frequently than another. Each sanctuary becomes an extension of the steward's interior doctrine, born from the Black Grail strain that shapes their will. Ceremonial cycles intensify during the fly's molting year. Rites conducted at this threshold require the sanctuary to undergo partial destruction, followed by rapid rebuilding. This process creates competing fronts. The Order of the Fly rushes to raise fresh structures, while Marian procession cells attempt immolation strikes with filtered breath masking the fumes. These collisions scar the countryside. Ash from burned sanctuaries mixes with pollen-like spores produced during reconstruction. Such spores drift toward settlements and root themselves in roof tiles, gutters, and abandoned crypts, marking each location for later conversion. patterns within relic record gesture toward the creation of spiritual corridors running between temples, forming an unseen network that strengthens missionary reach. The archives yield an implication that no sanctuary remains static. Carpentry shifts after each ritual. Stonework alters under fungal erosion seeded in prior ceremonies. Icons develop surface bulges that portray faces resembling thralls lost in earlier campaigns. Each sanctuary becomes its own chronicle, bearing the weight of every sacrifice, conversion, and pilgrimage that shaped it. Ritualists consider these structures living doctrinal vessels, expanding through every grafted relic, every stolen ornament, every dissolved inscription. Through this architecture, the fly's influence permeates valleys, forests, and foreign sultanates, where disguised missionaries plant shrines beyond the lines of Avignon's natural reach. Every new year brings a doctrinal upheaval. Molting initiates a convulsion through the cult's interior structure, generating frantic construction waves that spread across the hinterlands. Offspring of the anti-pope receive visions prompting them toward new terrain, dragging their congregations behind them. The record shows that these movements correspond with sudden eruptions of fertility in nearby fields, as if the soil anticipates sanctuary foundations before the first beam rises. Farmers displaced by hunger follow pilgrimage lines toward the rituals, and their arrival marks the transformation of the land into rot-rich pasture. The doctrinal strata permit a conjecture that molting alters missionary biology. Their musculoskeletal patterns shift. Their voices acquire deeper resonance. Their skin thickens with chitinous ridges that shimmer under torchlight. As these transformations unfold, new sanctuaries rise under their direction. Old sanctuaries collapse into husks. Sprouting structures absorb fragments from predecessors, each shard contributing ancestral echo. This cyclical disassembly and renewal ensures that no sanctum retains stasis. Mortar, mixed with sacrificial residue, grants new walls a pulsing sheen. Roof beams curl as if reacting to unseen breath. Icons form concentric layers of decay-lacquered gold. The Marian processions respond with fire during each molting cycle, their gas-masked cadres advancing into the fumes. Their torch lines frequently collide with the order of the fly's reconstruction waves. Ash from these conflicts drifts across entire provinces. Doctrinal residue indicates that ash interaction with Grail incense produces an emulsion that embeds itself in lungs and porcelain devotional masks worn by those who join later ceremonies. Once inhaled, this compound functions as both invitation and anchor. The breath becomes aligned with the fly's rhythm. Patterns within the relic record show that the horizon beyond Avignon thickens with shrines carried far into the Sultanate. Missionaries apply disguises, monetary offerings, and fume-saturated cloth to pass as wandering ascetics. Their progress leaves subtle markings, decaying ornaments attached to roadside altars, fly-shaped sigils carved under bridge arches, pollen traces embedded in torch brackets near caravanserai gates. These markings form a map of future expansion. Each sign indicates where soil will welcome the rot. As the molting year concludes, territories newly reshaped by ritual abundance settle into quiet anticipation. Crops surge. Pastures teem with life that moves with unnatural synchrony. The doctrinal strata suggest a horizon event forming across these regions, a culmination hinted through sacrificial hymns, describing a future wingbeat poised above France and all lands touched by the Grail. This horizon exerts its own gravity. Every sanctuary tilts toward it. Every missionary dream bends toward it. Every thrall's chant contains faint syllables implying an arrival carried by innumerable wings.